Oh my God. Did anybody see this coming? I know I had no idea this was going to happen, but this has massive fantasy football implications. So y'all know we go live after every single major news drops. I do everything that I can to get a live stream out right away and give you my raw initial reaction. And we have a lot to talk about here because with Cam Newton getting cut from the New England Patriots, with Mac Jones starting all 17 games for this season, this upcoming season, this could not be better for anybody that is a part of the New England Patriots with their fantasy football value. Because going over and looking at a Cam Newton, trust me guys, Cam Newton used to be, if not my favorite quarterback, one of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL. I love Cam Newton. But we can all safely say that Cam Newton is the style of quarterback, at least his version of himself after he destroyed that arm, after he destroyed that shoulder. I mean, the Cam Newton version of himself is someone that, yes, Newton himself can actually rack up a ton of fantasy points. Newton himself can rack up fantasy points by going and being one of the leading rushing quarterbacks in the NFL. Like if I pull up where he was last year, keep in mind, guys, I mean, this is just me going out and giving my raw initial reaction. I'm going to talk about where we're ranking Mac Jones. I'm going to be talking about where we're ranking these running backs. But first, let's look at Cam Newton. And the reason why Cam Newton was, I don't want to say good in fantasy last year, but he was at least going to be an intriguing option for the first few weeks of the season. I'll say I didn't draft Cam Newton in a single underdog draft, so this is actually pretty damn good for us, is the fact that if you look at his rushing statistics, this is someone that actually ran for almost 600 yards last year and 12 rushing touchdowns. And now while that may be great for Cam Newton himself with the fantasy production that he is going to see, what that is really bad for is the running backs in the offense, the receivers in the offense, because when Cam Newton himself is vulturing those touchdowns at the goal line, that means less touchdowns to go to Jonnu Smith, less touchdowns to go to Hunter Henry, less handoffs at the one for Damien Harris. So that just kills the excitement about really any New England Patriots player that you could have. Whereas now that Cam Newton's no longer going to be in this situation, Mac Jones is a night and day difference. If I pull up right now what Mac Jones did out of Alabama, keep in mind, you actually have college stats, at least at the quarterback position, being a little bit different than what you actually have in the NFL in terms of if you're looking at rushing, they actually count sacks as a negative yard. Like if you get sacked and y'all lose 8 yards, they count it against your college statistics that you had negative 8 rushing yards. It's weird. I know the NFL doesn't do it, but regardless, we pull this up. Mac Jones at Alabama, 35 rushing yards, his final season, 35 rushing yards in 13 games, 1 rushing touchdown. So he's not going to be the guy that's vulturing all the value in this offense. If anything, you're going to see the passing volume tip up. And even if you have maybe less carries to Damien Harris because the running game may not be as efficient, it's going to be perfect for Damien Harris. It's going to be perfect for Ramondre Stevenson. It's going to be perfect for James White, because also something we have to discuss is let's pull up James White right now with what happened last year with Cam Newton. This is a big reason why you couldn't be drafting James White, and we're kind of afraid of the same thing happening with the perfect example elsewhere is going to be a Taysom Hill in New Orleans with these rushing quarterbacks not checking the ball down to the running back out of the backfield, where we know when Taysom Hill took over to start for Drew Brees, the target share for Alvin Kamara went, I mean, it just died, and that turned Alvin Kamara from an elite level running back to someone that you're still starting every week, but not nearly as excited about the production you were getting. And I know it's laughable for me to come out here and talk about a James White and why I think that, I mean, this is going to be something similar because, yes, James White isn't half the running back that Alvin Kamara is, but we can look at the fact that Cam Newton just completely stopped dumping the ball off to the running backs last year out of the backfield. I mean, we already discussed Damien Harris has had a less than 1 target per game. We already know that Sony Michel was someone getting no targets at all. So you would assume, hell, I mean, I guess James White's getting a ton of usage in the receiving game. However, if you pull up his receptions from the past 3 seasons, you're actually going to see that James White in 2018, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. James White in 2018 actually had 123 targets. 123 targets. In the past 3 years, he's played 14 games every single year. So, I mean, it's not necessarily like he got hurt in any of these given years and that cut into his volume. So you actually had 123 targets for James White in 2018. That went down to 95 in 2019. And with Cam Newton as the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots, that went down to 62 this past season. And that's because those running quarterbacks, when they drop back, if their first, second read isn't there, I mean, they can tuck it and run. This is what we talked about with the Lamar Jackson, that Lamar Jackson's not going to be dumping the ball off to the running backs out of his backfield. We have the same concern right now with the Jalen Hurts, and that the targets for the running backs in that backfield, they are going to kind of crater. Just given the fact that if Cam Newton doesn't have his first and second read, he can go out there, he can run across the edge, and he can still pick up a first down without having to dump the ball off to James White. That's not going to be the case with the Mac Jones. This is completely different here. So with the Mac Jones, you're actually going to see the targets for every running back out of this backfield. I guarantee you that the amount of dropbacks in terms of a percentage basis that goes to a target to a running back is going to be significantly higher despite whatever running back is on the field. So y'all know Damien Harris has not been someone that I've been drafting aggressively this year. I really thought that Damien Harris was an overdrafted player. And now I have to sit here and y'all know I can't be biased at all. I mean, I'm always willing to say, I don't want to say we were wrong in this instance, but I'm always willing to say, yeah, I don't necessarily like this player, but it's great news for me. Yeah, this helps out Damien Harris tremendously. Now the yards per carry, the efficiency per carry, it's actually going to drop down just slightly because I mean, opposing defenses aren't going to have to really worry about an RPO in terms of maybe Mac Jones going through and taking it across, but still the targets are going to go up and there are going to be more touches at the goal line for those running backs. And talk about helping out the tight ends in this offense. Of course, you cannot be that excited about going out there. You cannot be that excited about just picking up one of these receivers. Now, if you're playing on Underdog Fantasy, if you're playing best ball, yes. I mean, Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, all of a sudden, they are a lot more appealing. But no, if we're playing in a weekly managed format, those receivers still aren't going to be guys that you're going to be excited to draft. However, the tight ends, someone like a Jonnu Smith, this is going to be perfect for Jonnu Smith because when you're drafting a tight end in this range, if you're drafting a tight end that is not Darren Waller, is not Travis Kelce, and instead you're going through and you're just trying to find someone that can have actually some usage in the red zone, that can get touchdown volume. That's what you're trying to find with the Jonnu Smith. That's what you're trying to find with a Hunter Henry. And now you have a much better chance of actually getting that from each player. So I think you bump up the tight ends. If I'm going to pull up my rankings right now to see where I have these respective guys, let's talk about Mac Jones. Mac Jones wasn't even in my top 20 quarterbacks before this. I mean, there's no way in hell you could have drafted a Mac Jones before knowing exactly where he was going to go. So we are going to have to probably move Mac Jones. I don't want to say in the top 20, but we're going to have to consider moving him up dramatically, especially in those underdog drafts. So let me pull up where we currently have the tight ends. In the version of the rankings that I just put out today, I actually did move Jonnu Smith up. It was more so about the tight ends around him having to move down the rankings. But as of now, we currently have Jonnu Smith as the tight end 13, directly behind Mike Gesicki and Robert Tonyan. And we actually have Hunter Henry down there as the tight end 16, directly behind Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. Now, keep in mind, guys, if you don't have the rankings, they're on Patreon, or you can make a very easy decision and make a $10 deposit to Underdog Fantasy. You can find a link in the description. You can find a link in the live chat, and they're on Underdog Fantasy. When you make that $10 deposit, because of this beautiful partnership that we have, this is where we live draft our fantasy football teams every single night. This is where I'm going to be drafting all day today. I mean, if you make a $10 deposit with promo code FLOCK, you actually get $25 added to your account. You get our 2021 fantasy football rankings and tiers, which will be updated tonight with this news that we're getting Mac Jones starting all 17 games. Also, you get our 2021 fantasy football draft guide, our 2021 dynasty rookie draft guide, hundreds of pages of information. We could be selling this for like $90, but because Underdog decided to sponsor all of these with just a $10 sign up for promo code FLOCK, you're getting it for for you to be willing to go out there and play $10 worth of fantasy draft. So definitely go out, take advantage of that. Helps the channel dramatically as well. So we're going to be moving those tight ends up. Receivers, I think now we actually do have to, I mean, Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, they are going to move up. Now, if you're playing in a league where you only start 2 receivers, you only start 1 flex, and at the most you can start 3 of these guys on a week-to-week basis. Yeah, Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, they're not going to be too intriguing there just because, obviously, I mean, you're going to be very limited on what you can actually have in terms of the depth that you're going at receiver. So I don't necessarily want to be just dramatically changing those. If you're playing in a best ball format, yes, go. If you're playing in a 14 team or if you're playing in a 16 team league, then yes, we need to be moving up both of those receivers. Now, if we go over to running back on the other hand, so Damien Harris, we actually currently have him ranked directly behind Chase Edmonds and Trey Sermon. We have Damien Harris ranked directly before A.J. Dillon and Kenyon Drake. I think we have to move up Damien Harris. It sucks. I don't want to. I don't even know who we're going to be able to put behind Damien Harris in this tier. But if I'm just looking at Damien Harris objectively, there's no way that we can't just look at the situation that he improved in And what we're probably going to end up doing is actually moving him up the overall rankings. I don't know if we can put him ahead of Trey Sermon. I don't know if we can put him ahead of just any really running back in this range. He's definitely going to jump some wide receivers here. I think that we actually need to be making an update where with these rankings, we're going to be moving up both Trey Sermon and Damien Harris, given the fact that we saw the San Francisco 49ers running game look elite this preseason. So yeah, you're going to see Damien Harris rise up in the rankings. He's probably going to move to tier 11 for anybody who has the rankings right now. Keep in mind, you're going to see the update tonight. Just let the day settle in. Let me really let the news marinate. That way we know exactly what adjustments we need to be making. But you're most likely going to see Damien Harris jump up to be in the same tier receivers like a Jerry Jeudy and Odell Beckham Jr. or Robbie Anderson. He's going to be in about that range where I actually think Damien Harris, you can probably draft him in probably the 6-7 turn right now. And keep in mind, this is a running back that I've been saying I want to avoid, but it's not like I can sit here and just go, okay, well, I hated him, so let's try to spin this a different way where this doesn't help Damien Harris. No, this drastically helps Damien Harris. It's also going to help James White. It's going to help Ramondre Stevenson. And I'm not saying that Mac Jones is going to be some significantly better quarterback for the New England Patriots. I'm not saying he's going to be some significantly better NFL starter. That's for Bill Belichick to decide. That's for people that are significantly smarter than I am. I'm just an idiot here, understanding that with how fantasy points get distributed in an offense, that Cam Newton's going to be like a black hole and he's going to take them all for himself. And he's not necessarily going to be the player that elevates the guys around him from a fantasy football perspective. This is all fantasy football. This is all fake football. So now with the transition, Mac Jones is going to be the exact opposite. Mac Jones, I don't know how excited we can be about him in a 4-point passing touchdown league. Now, I will say this move by the New England Patriots, I think should make us more excited about a Mac Jones, that they're willing to go out there and start him right away. And it kind of makes sense. This is the perfect fit for Bill Belichick and a quarterback that a lot of people wanted to argue, including myself, that he was a product of the Alabama system and the elite players around him. Well, now he went from an elite offensive line at Alabama with Nick Saban, the best head coach in college football, to now going to an elite offensive line in the NFL with Bill Belichick, the best head coach in the NFL. I mean, I think this is clearly an extremely nice fit for Mac Jones. You have to raise up every single New England Patriots running back, receiver, tight end. And I don't necessarily know exactly how appealing Mac Jones is going to be himself, just because he's more so probably going to play a game manager type role. They're probably going to try to win games based on their defense and running the ball. And we also know that Mac Jones isn't going to be picking up any rushing yards at all, which definitely handicaps the ceiling that you're going to have from a quarterback. So at this point, we have to go, well, is Mac Jones going to have more passing volume than Kirk Cousins? Most likely not. So Mac Jones, if you're playing in a very deep league, like if you're playing in a super flex, if you're playing in a 2 quarterback, if you're playing in a best ball format, there, yes, Mac Jones gets a bump up. If you're playing in like a 10 or a 12 team league where you only start 1 QB, honestly, not that excited to go and draft Mac Jones, just because I think the passing volume may be limited. And to go along with this, I mean, we know that he's not going to have any rushing upside. Okay, so let's go through and let me check the live chat real quick for some questions y'all had. We had a donation come in a little while ago that's from Robert, and he says we should have kept Cam as a backup and cut Brian Hoyer. I think this is maybe for a locker room thing. Like, it's very hard to go through and say, oh, we should have kept Cam Newton because yada, yada, yada. Guys, I think that at this level of like just an organizational standpoint, like it's really easy for us to say, oh, if we were playing Madden, we can of course go through and cut Brian Hoyer and keep Cam Newton as a backup because Cam Newton's a better NFL quarterback. We understand that's going to be someone that we want to roll with. Where I think there's so many moving variables that I'm going to be the first one to admit I don't understand. So if they cut Cam Newton, it's going to be very hard for me to play armchair quarterback and go, oh, Bill Belichick, an idiot. I'm way smarter than him. I know what we should have done. So there are probably a lot of other variables that it's hard to consider. And yes, of course, you can say that Cam Newton's a much better quarterback than Brian Hoyer. But at the end of the day, I'm very reluctant to call teams out like that just because I know my place. I know that if I was understanding NFL teams from that standpoint, I wouldn't be sitting here doing a fantasy football live stream. Instead, I'm really just trying to predict volume. I'm trying to predict the roles these players are going to have in the offenses and the talent that we have seen previously that may give us an indication of the efficiency that we can expect. So when it comes to going through and just trying to say what NFL teams should do, that's up here. That's up here. That's for the smart people. I'm down way below that, so I can't necessarily try to speak on that. And now let me see. Okay, guys, and also, if y'all have not already, go down there, drop a like on this live stream. Nobody else coming out here giving these real updates. If y'all enjoy me coming out and live streaming and giving my initial reaction every single time we get a significant piece of news like this, make sure you go down there and drop a like on the live stream. And let me look up on Twitter right now if there's any more news on Cam Newton, like if we have any indication of why they ended up cutting him. Like I said, I saw the notification that Cam Newton got cut. I made a thumbnail in about 30 seconds and I went live. I just pressed live. Let's go. I was actually about to premiere the video for today. I guess we're going to do that a little later today. Let me look up Cam Newton and see if there are any stories right now that may indicate exactly why they did cut him. Okay, so I do not see, I do not see any official reports yet. I'm assuming that we're probably going to get more details on this later today. Actually, it probably won't even be today. It'll probably be later this week. For now, I'd imagine that it's more so just people running around getting super excited about Mac Jones. But this has to give you a vote of confidence for Mac Jones. I mean, the fact that they saw him in the preseason. Let's look at what Mac Jones actually did in the preseason. And I know right now we are literally looking at preseason statistics. This matters really not at all. We can sit here and we can get excited about it, but I mean, just coming out and trying to say, ooh, Mac Jones did this. This is what he's going to do. And yeah, obviously he's going up against bad defenses. Obviously, it's a very small sample to go along with this. But still, I think that it will be fun to see exactly what he did in the preseason. I know he had a ridiculous completion percentage. I know he looked very efficient. So if we look at what he did against Washington, a very good defense. Keep in mind, he's not going up against first team. He actually went 13 for 19 with 87 yards. And I will say, keep in mind, we do not see a single rushing yard for Mac Jones. It's kind of what we were talking about. This is not someone that's going to be vulturing rushing touchdowns at the goal line. This is going to be someone that's willing to dump it off and not rush it himself. So, and then against the Eagles, 13 completions, 19 attempts, 146 yards. And we actually have one rush for 3 yards. Whoa, just showing that mobility, Mac Jones, showing that dad bod. And then the last game, 10 for 14, 156 passing yards. So more than 10 yards per attempt. Of course, you love to see that mark. And then a passing touchdown to go along with that. And then he had nothing in terms of the ground. And yeah, if you look at these stats side by side, I mean, Cam Newton didn't look like he was half the quarterback as Mac Jones during preseason. Now, I'll say it's preseason. It's preseason. Of course, it's hard to go off the small sample. It's hard to go off against the teams that really aren't trying. But I mean, I guess that this does just give us a vote of confidence for what we're getting from Mac Jones. It gives us a vote of confidence on what we may be able to expect from the New England Patriots. And now you have the quarterback out of this offense that's going to be vulturing everything. So you have to be bumping him up. And JN comes out, says, laugh my ass off at Mac Jones versus the 2s and 3s. Watch him suck. Like I said, my dude, I know that preseason does not matter that much. More so just looking at it to have some fun. And this has to help. Even if you don't think Mac Jones is going to be a better quarterback for the Patriots this year than Cam Newton would have been, I mean, this is going to be someone that provides more value to the overall offense. We have Joseph asking, should we drop Justin Fields for Mac Jones? No. No, do not do that. Do not drop Justin Fields for Mac Jones. Mark says Deshaun Watson to the Patriots. That would be crazy. That would be about the craziest thing ever. Now let's go through and see if we have anything else about this. James says, are we still not drafting Harris Mason? LOL. Yeah, we got to move up Damien Harris. Of course, you got to move up Damien Harris from that. I'll update all those rankings. Like I said, guys, if you want those rankings, they're on Patreon. Also, the easiest way to get those rankings is just depositing $10 on Underdog Fantasy. I'll send out a link in the live chat right now. Of course, there's a link in the description of the video. Make that $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK. And at the same time, when you use that promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy with that $10 deposit, you're getting $25 added to your account with the $10 deposit, and you're getting our 2021 fantasy football rankings tiers, which are all going to be updated after this. They'll be updated until the start of the season. And to go along with this, you're getting our 2021 fantasy football draft guide, our 2021 dynasty rookie draft guide, hundreds of pages of information, literally for a $10 deposit, and it helps the channel dramatically. So make sure. And Dre says, Patreon charges refresh tomorrow, but I need today. I don't know what that means, my man. Shoot me a DM on Patreon. I'm very sorry. I don't understand. I'm going to update the Patreon rankings tonight. James says, how does this affect Stevenson? What round do Harris and Myers go in now? Okay, so we already kind of discussed this earlier in the live stream, but with Ramondre Stevenson, this definitely helps every running back, just considering the fact that at the goal line, I mean, you're going to have less touchdowns vultured away from the quarterback. At the same time, you're going to have more target dump offs out of the backfield. So this helps Stevenson. This helps James White. It helps Damien Harris. It helps every single running back in this scenario. Now, Jacoby Myers, I've actually already discussed this, but he is someone that if you're playing in a league where you only start 2 receivers and 1 flex, that's going to be shallow enough where I don't necessarily think you need to go that deep on receiver. I'm going to be a little less interested in a Jacoby Myers there. However, if you're going to be playing in a league that you actually are just going through and rolling out, say you can start 3 receivers every week, and then you have a flex, or you actually have 2 wide receiver slots and then you have 2 flexes, that's when we begin to get interested about a Jacoby Myers. Okay, so Casey says, can I get your new rankings if you already sent? Yeah, guys, if y'all want the updated rankings, if for whatever reason you don't have a link to track the rankings and you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy earlier this month, just reply to the email that you got the draft guide with and say, Mason, can I get the updated rankings? And I'll send them over like that. But let me send out that link to Underdog Fantasy for anybody wanting to come out and wanting to just do that $10 deposit, get $25 added to your account, and then all at the same time, get our rankings, get our tiers, get our draft guides. Literally, it makes so much sense. It's like probably an $80, $90 value, to be completely honest, and you're getting it for a $10 deposit. And then you throw in the $25 you're getting onto your account. Say it's $110 value, and you're getting it for a $10 deposit just because Underdog has been so nice and decided to sponsor all of this. But yeah, I really hope that this was a good instant reaction update for everybody. Now, I'm going to update those rankings tonight, but I have to let it settle in all day because I know I want to go out there and I want to make some rash decisions, but it's going to be a little too tough. So I'll go through and I will update those rankings tonight for everybody. But yeah, move up everybody in this New England Patriots offense. Less vulture touchdowns at the goal line, more dump offs instead of running on third down. It's going to be great for every pass catching option. It's going to be great for the running backs as well. I mean, this is a good day if you were drafting New England Patriots skill positional players.